Monday morning at Olympic Primary School in Kibra. Many learners are busy in their classrooms. Pupils having a test of the new curriculum. In this classroom, we have 105 pupils. And what I'm holding currently is a learner's book for grade 3. But the teacher tells me we have only 4 such books in this classroom. Not by the government, but just by parents who have considered to buy for their pupils or children. It's evident from the huge number of pupils in this class and the lack of learning materials that the teacher will not achieve the outcome as required and provided for in the guidelines for the competency-based curriculum. The number of pupils in this class is telling. Some of the learners have lost concentration. The 2663 curriculum demands that after every lesson, every learner is assessed through an assessment rubric. The assessment plays key in the awarding of marks at the end of the stipulated period. But on the contrary, in this class, no learner has been assessed and awarded marks since they began their learning.
And yellow, and another one, red.
But this is in total contrast in what is observed at a private school in Lavington. At Amika's kindergarten school, classes have an average of 8 to 10 learners with at least 2 teachers. There are no books on the table, but learning is in progress.
They've really directed their own activity. You've seen what they've discovered. Some of them have said they've discovered that when they mix 2 colors, another color comes up. Yeah, you've seen some of them after painting, they've tried out hand printing. The teacher was not telling them that. They're just exploring, and when they see this is not coming out the way they want, they try another way. Yeah, this is how problem solving comes up, through this decision making and seeing the results that they're getting through the experimentation process.
There are those who teachers here say have been identified as highly talented in singing and playing music. They have the freedom to explore and learn by themselves. Tutor acknowledging that this gives more value in nurturing talent and skill.
They practice together, and this is another thing that we are really trying to bring about in CBC. You can see it's not only knowledge of music or the piano, but there's also values. You know, we are talking about values. How are you going to instill values? Yeah, if you don't let children direct themselves, make such decisions. You know.
Yes, I say please.
Former Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed had reservations about the new curriculum and postponed its implementation, citing poor infrastructure, lack of enough teachers and resources. And as the Ministry of Education and the Teachers Union continue to engage in a war of words over the implementation of the competency-based curriculum, these 2 pictures can only tell a similar story in 2 different ways. Makori Ongechi, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
So you see that image of sort of contrast between 2 schools, different infrastructure. One class has 105 learners. What does this do to delivery of CBC, and how do we surmount the challenges that are already being faced?
Can I just clarify that it is not about CBC, it's about education. Mm-hmm. That same problem of 105 students per class existed with 844. It is not a problem created by CBC. Mm-hmm. And we still had issues delivering 844 with classes that size. Mm-hmm. As you're well aware, this was a problem that burst into the open with the free primary education. So we've had an unsolved problem of large classes in our public schools that we must consistently work at reducing the class size. We must adhere. If we say the maximum class size is 45 in a public school, we must devote resources and for infrastructure to bring down that class. This is not humanly possible. There is no way, 844 or CBC, there is no way that class is being taught effectively. Those teachers are superhuman beings.
So should we have then, instead of coming up with a new curriculum, then addressed the core issues, like you're saying, the issue of where you have one class, 150 students, whether we're doing 844, 2633, whatever curriculum it is, whatever system we decide to go to, at the end of the day, did we fail to address the main issues within our society, should I say?
That is one problem that we must work at, and this is an urban area problem. Mm-hmm. So it needs all the players in urban areas to come and sort out these particular issues that are endemic in urban areas. You've seen the rural school problems in infrastructure where we have mud-walled schools, and we are expecting them to deliver education. Right. I am underlining the fact that we are not saying CBC is the cause of that. It is older problems that we've had. System, you know, they are old, not just, they burst in the open with free primary education, but we've always had some schools in the public space being too large for the infrastructure they have. And in the same spirit, we have empty schools, public schools, empty. That because of perhaps location, catchment, whatnot, they just don't have the numbers. I'll give you Kileleshwa Primary. They don't have a single class of over 30.
And so, Janet,
it's a public school.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, Janet, of course, the main concern from the Kenya National Union of Teachers and critics of this rollout has been exactly that the infrastructure is not up to standard to deliver a CBC. So for them, they're saying, yes, we have the challenge that we have here, but before you move to the next style of curriculum, then you have to fix a few things. Is it a possibility? Is it realistic?
Let's address a few things. That why do we need, or why did we feel as a country that we needed to change the curriculum? 844 is worrisome. And you know, the constitution that we give to ourselves is talking about giving every child a chance. The truth of the matter is, as currently implemented, the 844 is not giving every child, is not bringing out every child's potential. And therefore, the question is here, would we want to proceed with the massive wastages that we have witnessed within the 844 system, or do we want to do something about our software so that then the children that we already have within the infrastructure that we have, we can ensure that at least we bring out their full potential much as we can, so that we end up with human beings that are not blaming us. And that is what we are saying. And there is nobody who is contesting that we have a shortage of infrastructure in the country. And I always say that it is not a bad problem. We would rather those children are in school than when they were home, because we have reasons as to why they are in school. They are in schools because the government's initiatives about free primary education, about free secondary education, and so on and so forth. So it's not really a bad problem. What we are saying is, the government should be saying that as we are doing, because I'm happy the government is addressing the software. For a very long time, we have thought that putting up classes and buying desks is everything. But you would put up classes, you would buy the desks, but then put a child through an entire Form 4, but they have nothing to do. You rubber stamp a D on them or an E on them. How helpful is it?
So are we saying that 844 was generally the problem, the system in itself, the syllabus in itself, or are we saying that still at the end of the day, whether we have this curriculum or that curriculum, the software challenges that you've outlined, infrastructure, inequality, are still not being addressed at the end of the day?
It would not be very accurate to say that inequalities are not being addressed, because only that I do not have the figures to just show the advancements, for example, in terms of the infrastructure that the government has put in place and so on and so forth. But I would say that addressing the software problem about our education system, for me, I think is an emergency, because looking at the figures that every year we read out that 30,000 children had AIDS, and then you're thinking about have we judged those human beings using all the possible frameworks that there were? I mean, what did we say about the talent they have? What did we say about their skills? Did we even take them through all those 14 years? And we didn't bother ourselves to test what else are they good at apart from what our system, so they are legitimate concerns, but I would want to say, for the sake of records, that probably the comparison that we saw on that are not very good to allow us do any analysis. You'd probably compare a school like Olympic with a non-formal, private arrangement, so that then you can see, because the levels of probably poverty and the levels of implementation would probably try and compare. And then you would compare the private school that you have compared here with a school like Nairobi Primary, for example, so that we can be able to actually do a close analysis.
But can I just say two things?
Sure, but still you look at, for instance, what Makore Ongechi calls the assessment rubric. It has not been filled for the learners for quite some time. How then does that affect the effectiveness of the CBC, despite the challenges of large classes?
I'll come to that. Let me just say two very brief things. That first of all, let's remember that a school gives a lens of society. So the inequity we have seen over there is a societal, not educational thing. And as a societal thing, it calls for all of us to act upon it, including the school system, because education still continues to be to help bring equality. Secondly, one of the issues that has been asked, should we have waited? The saying goes,
a journey of 1,000 steps begins with the first one. You have to, at a point, after 4 years of planning, we had to take that first step. And with taking the step, we are learning a number of things and a number of challenges, including movement of assessment, as you have said. Yes, the assessment rubrics have not been filled. And I think going forth, what we need to do is to find different systems of assessments, because not everything is assessed through grading. How will you assess that a child is acquiring values, because value-based education is a key pillar? And what is a value? A value could be, and I saw this in a class which was very impressive. They were learning about geography of Nairobi, and then one child was asked, who is the governor? And immediately said, Sonko. And the teacher asked, is that your age mate? And quickly the child said, Governor Sonko. What has the child learned? Respect. It was taught immediately. It can be assessed as we go on. So these are the ways in which we need to expand how we are assessing the various things we think are important to come with the new system of education. Which, if you asked me what we need to be focusing on, are the three things. Because there was a disconnect between the 21st century skills, because we are training children for our society and others, and we need to ensure that they have these 21st century skills. There was a disconnect with the national goals of education, which talk about cohesion, everything. And that is why value-based education and things like that become important. And then thirdly, there was also a disconnect with what has been stated here in terms of competencies. Children were leaving school without anything. And so these demand different ways. And I wish one day you should have participated in the training that has been going on, because how we assess children in a formative way, a lot of thought has gone through it, and training is now ongoing to expand it so that it is not just a cognitive-based assessment process.
All right. As we are continuing having this conversation, we're getting a lot of your tweets and feedback, and that's what we want to take a look at right now. Your tweets and your comments on this conversation we're having in studio. Let's take a look at that. At Citizen TV Kenya are our Twitter handles. Francis, you say, not just playing politics. CBC is the best thing that could happen. We cannot complain all these years that our children are being drilled with useless facts and not getting time to grow. When a solution is provided, we want to stay with 844. Really? All right, that's one tweet from Francis.
Davis. Failure to lay down infrastructure and resources before implementation of the CBC will not work. Just like the laptop project failed because of lack of infrastructure. Hashtag daybreak.
Right, let's take a look at the last one. Just BT, you say, does this curriculum accommodate students with learning challenges such as dyslexia rather? All right, that's a very good question, whether it handles or rather prepares such unique children. Jadida, you're a teacher, you get to interact with them. Does the new curriculum do that? Will it help certain children living with certain conditions be able to learn?
In fact, when you look at how a CBC or the competency-based curriculum is and how it is implemented in the countries where it has been implemented, you realize that it's more of a block kind of module. Yeah, and we're saying that for a student to move to the next level, they must have mastered the competencies. So if they have not mastered the competencies, does that mean they will not move to the next level? How long? It doesn't look at time. That is, after 1 year, the student is supposed to move to the next level. It varies with the different abilities of the learners. So if we have fast learners, they move faster than the slow learners. So in one way or another, in a class, I'm anticipating a class has different capabilities of learners. What does this place the teacher? There's one student who is ahead because they're able to move, they have achieved the competences, they have mastered the competences. There are some students who are slower. So at one point, and I'm looking at a scenario in our Kenyan curriculum, in our Kenyan classes, where we have a class of 100 plus, or even 40, because a normal CBC class, for the countries that have implemented CBC, a class has 25 learners. And that class has 3 teachers. So look at a scenario where
3 teachers at the same time, or 1 teacher for every?
3 teachers in that class, because we are teaching different competencies. We have 7 competencies, learning areas that we are supposed to learn. Is that teacher supposed to impact the learners with all those learning? Mm-hmm. The only issue I've realized is that we are not keen to really lead about competency-based curriculum and how it is implemented.
But Jadida, Dr. Sarah Ruto spoke about the means of assessing the children and how to go about it. Is this knowledge that teachers already have? What are the gaps?
As she's handling that. Oh, all right, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, I'm asking. She spoke about how to assess learners in the classroom. Is this knowledge? She sounds so knowledgeable at the KICD level. Is this knowledge that teachers already have?
Well, okay. The subject could be the same for some of the, especially for the earlier levels. But remember, there's something else we are coming in. We have brought in other learning areas. Have the teachers been taught to actually...
Please give me an answer to that. That question you're posing. Have the teachers been trained?
No, not at the level they should be.
What is that level that they should be?
It's actually the training. The trainings have not been effectively done.
You feel the trainings have been rushed?
First, the trainings have been rushed, but still we are saying that these are teachers on the ground. But we have introduced a different way of, it's a pedagogy, a different way of teaching.
Okay, Jadida,
can I be a critic of what we do?
Just a moment. You're the voice of teachers here.
Yes.
So when teachers go through teachers training colleges, if it's P1 or it's diploma, whatever level they are going, there are certain areas that they are taught. We have had people saying that, I was listening to Dr. John, the director of KICD yesterday, and he was saying that teachers, when they go to training colleges, they are not taught for a specific curriculum. They are taught how to deliver content. So what is this training that you would want to see from the Kenya National Union of Teachers perspective so that your members are able to effectively deliver this curriculum?
We've said all along that teachers and learners are not learning. Does that mean that, what does that mean? The teachers, yes, are trained, but they don't have the capability to actually help this learner to learn. Now, we are talking about mastery of competence, mastery of skills. It's a different approach. So the teachers have to be trained to help the child. We are talking of talent development. How will that teacher be able to identify the talents? Have they been taught to help the child to develop those talents?
So
which was different from what was happening in the previous curriculum.
Should they return to colleges, or is it through the training like what we had in April of about 4 days?
No, it shouldn't be. At most, at least 2 weeks.
And that would make you as teachers happier?
Yeah, because that will help the teacher. A teacher who's been in a classroom, you've been taught a pedagogy. This is a pedagogy shift from how we were doing it, just giving the knowledge, to mastery, competency, and the ability of the teacher to be able to help that child.
All right. Doctor?
No, we'll come back to that. I just don't know. What is the experience of your teachers?
Now, let me start with the special needs
yes.
and where we are from and where we are right now. The outcome-based system, 844, is naturally attritions any child who can't. You're left behind. You hear kids being told to repeat, you can't learn, you can't do what. This one sort of gives teachers the patience, other than training a child for an exam. To discover what is actually wrong. Now, as I come to that discovery, now let me come to teacher training. All teachers have been trained in their training, have a spectrum of knowledge on special needs. Has it been applied? No. Before, because only exams mattered. Yeah? And the tragedy of 844 is that the exam that mattered is KCPE and KCSE.
Right.
All the rest were meant to prepare and to just push out the ones who can. The ones who can't, so that each school and each teacher can get the best outcome. In TSC, I'm not criticizing, this is a fact. Promotion was based on how you performed in KCP and KCSE. For a principal to be a principal of a national school, you had to score, you have to score 9.0 3 times consecutively. Now it is what, 7 after the reforms? It is tragic all the way. It is just tragic all the way. Meaning that for a head teacher to be promoted to a certain type of school, first of all, they have to be in a school where the catchment, where the intake means that students in that school can pass to that level. So if you're in a day school, there's no chance that you'll ever be a principal of Kenya High or whatever.
We'll come back with that discussion